Man, we never know what God has planned for us. We never know. We just never know, and we never know who we're going to meet. Now, these cards here from our visitors are okay. So it's Candice Brady, amen, and Brandy Carl, amen. We're glad to have you guys tonight, amen, amen. And you just never know what God has planned for us. Let's go to 1 Samuel 25. And I wanted to deal with this again because in life, you're going to deal with difficult people. And when you deal with difficult people, there's a way to deal with difficult people. And when I dealt with this, I didn't get to finish it. Um, but I used Romans 8 and 28, everything works together for the good of them that love the Lord and that are called according to his purpose. And so my subject was make everything work out for your good. You have to choose to make everything work out for your good. You have to choose. You have to choose. You can either sit depressed, you can sit down and out, or you can find a way to make it work out for your good. To make things work out for your good. You have to. And so, we were going to go back to 1 Samuel 25, and I'm going to just kind of read the story of Abigail. And then we're going to talk about it, the 20 good qualities of Abigail. And I know that some of you, have to deal with difficult situations. I had to deal with, when I first got saved, I had to deal with some difficult situations and things that, that almost, cost me my ministry. Well, I wasn't in ministry, but just at the time, a lot of anger and different things. And so, wanted to hurt somebody on the job, this and that. But God was good. He taught me how to deal with difficult people. And so, in 1 Samuel 25, we're going to start at the second verse, and it says, "And there was a man in Maon." There was a man in Maon whose possessions were in Carmel. And the man was very great, and he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife was Abigail. And she was of a woman of good understanding and of a beautiful countenance. But the man was churlish and evil in his doing, and he was of the house of Caleb. And David heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep. And David sent out 10 young men, and David said unto the young men, Get you up to Carmel, and go to Nabal, and greet him in my name. And thus shall you say to him that liveth in prosperity, Peace be both to thee, and peace be to thine house, and peace be unto all that thou hast. And now I have heard that thou hast shearers. Now thy shepherds which were with us, we hurt them not, neither was there aught missing unto them all the while they were in Carmel. Ask thy young men, and they will show thee. Wherefore let the young men find favor in thine eyes. For we come in a good day. Give, I pray thee, whatsoever cometh to thy hand, unto thy servant, and to thy son David. And when David's young men came, they spoke to Nabal according to all those words in the name of David, and ceased. And Nabal answered David's servant, and said, Who is David? And who is this son of Jesse? That there be many servants nowadays that break away every man from his master. Shall I then take my bread and my water, and my flesh that I have killed for my shearers, and give it unto men whom I know not whence they be? So David's young men turned their way and went again and came and told him all those sayings. And David said unto his men, gird ye on every man his sword. And they girded on every man his sword, and David also girded on his sword. And there went up after David about 400 men, and 200 abode by the stuff. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, Behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed on them. But the men were very good to us, and we were not hurt, neither missed we anything, as long as we were conversing with them when we were in the fields. They were a wall unto us, both by night and day, and all the while we were with them, keeping the sheep. Now therefore know and consider what thou wilt do, for evil is determined against our master, and against all his household. Somebody say, all his household. For he is such a son of Belial that a man can't speak to him. Now he's talking about his master, Nabal. Amen. And then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves and 2 bottles of wine, 5 sheep, ready dressed, 5 measures of parched corn, 100 cluster of raisins, 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on asses. And she said unto her servants, Go on before me, behold, I come after you. But she told not her husband Nabal. And it was so as she rode on the ass that she came down by the covert of the hill, and behold, David and his men came down against her, and she met them. Now David had said, Surely in vain have I kept all this fellow has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that pertained unto him, and he has requited me evil for good. So and more also do God unto the enemies of David, if I leave any of all that pertain to him by the morning light, any that pisses against the wall. And when Abigail saw David, she hastened, lightened off the ass, fell before David on her face, and bowed herself to the ground, and fell at his feet, and said, Upon me, my Lord, let this iniquity be. And let my handmaid, I pray thee, speak in thine audience, and hear the words of thine handmaid. Let not my Lord, I pray thee, regard this man of Belial, even Nabal, for he is as his name is. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, thine handmaid, saw not the young men of my Lord, whom thou didst send. Now therefore, my Lord, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, seeing the Lord has withholden thee from coming to shed blood, and from avenging thyself with thine own hand, now let thine enemies, and they that seek evil to my Lord, be as Nabal. All right, and so she begins to talk to David, and David is determined to kill her whole household. He's determined to kill everybody, all the males in the house. He's determined to destroy everything. And one of the first things that I deal with is, once again, is unmet expectations. Amen? Now, why was David angry? Why was David angry in the first place? Expectations. Unmet expectations. Has anybody ever disappointed you? Has anybody ever, you thought they should do this, and they didn't do this, and so you were upset about it? Anybody in here know what I'm talking about? All right, so let's just say unmet expectation. So many times we have unmet expectations of people, of God. Come on. Is that right? Amen. So David is about to go on a murder spree because of his unmet expectations. And so there was a book, I believe it was, Why Can't She, or a chapter, Why Can't He or She Read My Mind, husband and wife. Why can't he or she read my mind? I mean, sometimes we expect people to know exactly what we want. Is that correct? And when it doesn't happen, what happens? Okay, we're a bit upset. We are a bit discouraged. We are, because of our unmet expectations. In order to not to have unmet expectation, there has to be communication. And then if you're going to have communication, you're going to have real communication. I mean, because y'all know that when we talk, male to female, it loses something in the translation. Anybody in here married? Amen. And so sometimes when we talk and the male says something or the female says something, and then it gets bungled up in the translation. Was that lost in the translation? Does anybody understand what I'm talking about? All right, so we got some married folks in here, all right, and so they, and then sometimes when we just talk from people to people, some things get lost in the translation. So David is trying to communicate with Nabal. He sends his young men. He wants to communicate with Nabal, but Nabal is not hearing it. David is saying, you know what? David's got all these wonderful men, and if you get a chance, read First Chronicles 11, and around the 11th verse, and it tells you about all of David's mighty men, about his mighty men and how mighty these guys are. One man, he defeats 200 to 300 men alone. I mean, he's got some guys that are, some terrific men that God has sent to help him, and so, as a matter of fact, let's just go to Chronicles very quickly, and I want to show you what type of trouble she was facing. And First Chronicles 11. And they were facing some really bad trouble. Chronicles 11. First Chronicle 11. These are some of the mighty men that David had. And he only took 400 of them with him. He had 600. And he only took 400 because Nabal had a pretty good spread and had servants and things. But they wouldn't have been no match for David and his mighty men. I just want to give you a quick rundown on what some of his guys could do. In First Chronicles 11 and 10, it says, and these are the chief of the mighty men whom David had, who strengthened themselves with him in his kingdom, and with all Israel to make him king, according to the word of the Lord concerning Israel. And this is a number of the mighty men whom David had. Jasubim, a Hakemite, the chief of the captain, he lifted up his spear against 300 and was slain by him at one time. Just one man of his defeat 300 men. I mean, David, Nabal was in trouble. And then there was another one in verse 12. It says, and after him was Eleazar, the son of Dodo, the Ahohite, and was one of the three mighties. He was with David at Pasdammim, and there were the Philistines gathered together to battle, where there was a parcel of ground full of barley, and the people fled before the Philistine. And they set themselves, David and this individual, set themselves in the midst of that parcel, and delivered it, and slew the Philistine. And the Lord saved them by a great deliverance. And so David had some mighty men, and Nabal was in trouble. He was in trouble. And so this is what Abigail has to face. She's having to face down. She has to go and face David and 400 of his men. 400 of his men. And so, but she was, she was a wise woman. So let's go to our paperwork. The 20 good qualities of Abigail. And this will help you to deal with a situation, any situation to where you've got to deal with people and deal with difficult people. And in your walk with God, you're going to have to deal with difficult people. And sometimes it's in the church.